everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nikita, and in today's video we're going to learn how to find out our residential status in India. Now if you're watching this video after watching this particular video, then you would know why do we have to find out our residential status. But if this is the first video that you're watching, then let's learn together what residential status means and why should we find out. But before I get started, I would like to thank all my subscribers for subscribing to my channel, all those of you who liked my earlier videos, and to those of you who've been sharing my content with your friends and relatives. Thank you very much for your support and encouragement. Let's get started. So you need to know your residential status for tax purposes. So whether you're using the calculator on the IT department's website in order to find out which regime is more suitable for you, or whether you're filing your tax return, you need to know details of your residential status in order to fill in them, which means you need to know how to arrive at it. Because based on your residential status, the provisions of the Income Tax Act will apply accordingly. So your residential status will fall in one of these categories. So you can either be a resident or a non-resident. And if you are a resident, then you can either be a resident and ordinarily resident, or a resident but not ordinarily resident. Now please note that your residential status can be only one out of these categories for a particular financial year. So it may change or may not change year after year, and I'll explain that part a little later in this video. So next you need to know that there are two conditions. So we have basic conditions and we have additional conditions. Now basic conditions help you identify whether you are a resident or a non-resident. Once you find out that you are a resident, then you will have to apply the additional conditions to find out if you are a resident and ordinarily resident, or a resident but not ordinarily resident. So now that we have discussed the basic conditions and the additional conditions, let's proceed to find out what your residential status is. So take a look at these basic conditions. Like I said earlier, you will have to determine your residential status for each financial year. So let's find out your residential status for the financial year 2023 to 24. Please note that the financial year in India starts on the 1st of April and ends on the 31st of March. So firstly, you will have to apply these basic conditions to yourself. Let's take a look at the first condition, which says you will have to be present in India for 182 days or more between April 1, 2023 to 31st March 2024. Now if you fulfill this particular condition, then you are a resident. But if you haven't, then you will have to proceed to condition number 2, which says that you should have been present in India for 60 days or more between April 1, 2023 to 31st March 2024, and for a period of 365 days or more during the 4 years preceding the relevant previous year. So in your case, the 4 years preceding the relevant previous year, that's 2023 to 2024, will be 2022 to 2023, 2021 to 2022, 2020 to 2021, and 2019 to 2020. So if you haven't fulfilled the first condition, but if you fulfill the second condition, then you will be a resident. But if you do not fulfill any of these conditions, then you will be a non-resident. So if you fulfill any one of these basic conditions, either the first one or the second one, then you are a resident in India. And if you do not fulfill any one of them, then you are a non-resident. Please remember that the date of arrival in India and the departure from India should also be calculated. So now that you are done with applying the basic conditions, let's proceed with applying the additional conditions. So let's take a look at what the additional conditions are in order to find out if you are a resident and ordinarily resident, or a resident but not ordinarily resident. So the first condition says that you should have been a resident for at least 2 years out of 10 years preceding April 2023 to March 2024. which means you'll have to use the basic condition rule again for any 2 years out of those 10 years to find out if you were a resident in any 2 years out of the 10 years. And the second condition says that you should have stayed in India for at least 730 days in 7 years immediately preceding April 2023 to March 2024. So only if you fulfill both these conditions, then you are a resident and ordinarily a resident. If you have fulfilled only one of these conditions, or let's say none of these two conditions, then you will be a resident but not ordinarily a resident. So at this point, if you could fit yourself into any one of these categories, then it means that you have identified your residential status. Coming up next, we shall see how the residential status of certain non-residents could change to not ordinary resident, and we shall also see the procedure to find out the residential status of individuals belonging to these categories. So let's start with non-residents. Let's rewind this video a little bit. Pause. I had said, if you don't fulfill any of these conditions, then you will be a non-resident. But there's an exception here. Let's say you are an Indian citizen who's a non-resident because you haven't fulfilled any of the basic conditions. But if you have a total income exceeding rupees 15 lakhs during the relevant financial year for which you are determining your residential status, and if this income excludes income from foreign sources, and if you are not liable to pay tax in any other country because of your residence there, then you would be deemed to be a resident but not ordinarily resident, which means you are no longer a non-resident but a resident and not ordinarily a resident. And finally, coming to these categories of individuals. If you belong to the first three categories, then you will have to apply just one basic condition to yourself. You should have been present in India for 182 days or more between April 1, 2023 to 31st March 2024. So if you fulfill this basic condition, then you are a resident for the year 2023-2024, and if you don't, then you're a non-resident. Now if you are a resident, then you will have to apply these additional conditions. So the first condition says that you should have been a resident for at least 2 years out of 10 years preceding April 2023 to March 2024. And the second condition says that you should have stayed in India for at least 730 days in 7 years immediately preceding April 23 to March 24. If you fulfill both of these conditions, then you are a resident and ordinarily resident. But if you fulfill only one of these conditions or none of these conditions, then you are a resident but not ordinarily a resident. And now coming to the final category of individuals who could be Indian citizens or persons of Indian origin who, being outside India, come on a visit to India between April 1, 2023 to March 31, 2024, whose total income excluding income from foreign source exceeds rupees 15 lakhs. So if you belong to this particular category, then you will have to apply these basic conditions to yourself. The first condition says that you should have been present in India for 182 days or more between April 1, 2023 to 31st March 2024. And the second condition says, now this particular condition is slightly different from the earlier conditions that we saw. So the second condition says that you should have been present in India for 120 days or more between April 1, 2023 to 31st March 2024, and for a period of 365 days or more during the 4 years immediately preceding April 2023 to March 2024. So if you fulfill even one of them, then you will be a resident, but if you don't fulfill any of them, then you will be a non-resident. And if you are a resident, then you will have to apply the following additional conditions to find out if you are a resident and ordinarily a resident, or a resident but not ordinarily a resident. So if you fulfill both the additional conditions, then you will be a resident and ordinarily a resident. But if you fulfill only one of these conditions or none of these conditions, then you will be a resident but not ordinarily a resident. Now I have one more piece of information for individuals belonging to this particular category based on an amendment in the Income Tax Act. So let's say you are an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin who, being outside India, comes on a visit to India between April 1, 2023 to March 31st, 2024, whose total income excluding income from foreign source exceeds rupees 15 lakhs. Let's say you don't fulfill the basic conditions, okay? So what will you do? You will move on to the second basic condition. But let's say you fulfill only a part of this condition where you stay for 120 days or more but less than 182 days in 2023 to 2024. In this case, you will be treated as a resident but not ordinarily a resident. So you don't have to go through the usual procedure of applying the additional conditions. If you are an individual in this category and your stay in India in 2023 to 2024 was 120 days or more but less than 182 days. So that was a detailed video on how to find out your residential status. So I hope you found out what your residential status in India is. Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like this video, please hit on the like button, and if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and please share this content with your family and friends. By the way, if you haven't watched this particular video on which tax regime would be more suitable for you, then please do check it out. So see you with another video on extra portion. Small dosage every week for extra brightness. See you soon.